Hello, so I want to share my story with you as to why I'm doing a course on how to live happy and free from PCOS and diabetes. And I don't normally talk publicly about my health issues. I don't like talking about personal things. And also because what we think about and talk about, we create and bring more of into our life, laws of attraction, right? So I'm doing this because I'm going to launch the course soon. And I want to just share this story with you so you understand where my experience has come from. So my health issues primarily began when I was 19 years old. I bent down to pick something up, my back went and I never got up again. I had terrible sciatica. It came out of the blue, out of nowhere, I didn't know why. And by the time I was 28, I was close to disabled. I had shooting sciatica and neuritis down the one side of my body, always on the left. And I wasn't diagnosed properly with sciatica endometriosis until I was 33. And we were looking at why we were struggling to get pregnant as a married couple. So they then said, well, the endometriosis wouldn't be stopping you from getting pregnant because it was all on your lower spine. It was between L1 and L5. And because of the area, they couldn't laser it away because then I'd end up in a wheelchair, really. There's too many nerves there that they would have lasered by accident. The most skilled surgeon couldn't have, it was too risky. So it was a case of being in agony for 2.5, 3 weeks a month, or being in a wheelchair and pretty much in agony forever. So when I was 28, they had not at this point diagnosed me properly. So because of the sciatica endometriosis in my lower spine, it made me, when those cells were active, it made me walk and sit in a stressed and tense and pained posture. So I got lots of prolapse and slip discs. So I was in a really bad state. They gave me epidurals to yank my lower body back into position. They decided that steroids probably wouldn't work. They couldn't do laser. They were even talking about putting a metal plate in my spine to hold those discs that kept popping out into place. But still, at the age of 28, none of them had noticed that this wasn't just postural from me working in IT, which it wasn't, because I'm now 50 and I work in IT and I have no back problems. But it was sciatica endometriosis. When I was pregnant, it shocked me that I was carrying twins and I was able to march at the top of the hills when I was 8 months pregnant, and women 3 months pregnant with a singleton couldn't keep up with me. I had no back pain, and that was the first time I realised the power of hormones and how my cycles were destroying my life. My pregnancy was the only relief I had had in my whole life from the pain. It was really shocking, actually. I then continued to have some relief during breastfeeding, but a year later I went through divorce. The twins were only 1 year of age. My ovaries went crazy once I finished breastfeeding, and the doctor started treating me for breast cancer because of the PCOS and the endometriosis and the hell that it was doing to my body. It was literally making every month of my life chronically painful, and I was living in hell. I felt trapped in a horrible body that was so painful and so awful I couldn't escape. But don't worry, it's all gone now, and I'm going to share with you how and why. So after years of epidurals, years of being yanked into position, years of being given injections in my abdomen, treated for breast cancer, told there's not much else they can do, nothing worked. I had extreme prescription painkiller medicine that was highly addictive. That didn't work, but it gave me IBS, and it gave me the medication, all of it gave me so many other symptoms to deal with on top of everything else, that the medication just didn't seem to work, and it didn't help, and it was just awful. All the women in my family, my nieces, my sisters, my moms, my aunts, all had suffered these things. I think pretty much all of them in their 30s had a hysterectomy. But I knew that a hysterectomy would not actually serve or help me because of the underlying problems, which I'll get into later. So I had MRI scans. My back was terrible. I was probably at my worst when I was 28, and I actually started to just drink too much because alcohol was the only relief I could find. It got rid of the back pain. temporarily, and it didn't give me the health issues that the prescription painkillers gave me. So I ended up drinking too much because of the pain, and it wasn't great. I did learn very slowly, far too slowly, that the less stress I had in my life, the less health issues I had in my life. So PCOS, endometriosis, they are horribly amplified with stress. And I never really realised the power of stress. Working in a fast-paced IT industry, I thought stress was just an excuse. I didn't give it the credit it deserved. And boy, did I learn the hard way on that one. So I was in so much discomfort that it would, if I had to be up for 7 a.m, I would have to set my alarm at 5 a.m. because it took me 2 hours to wake up, do certain exercises, warm up my lower back, and be able to kind of maneuver myself over to the edge of the bed, get my legs over, and then slowly stand up, if that makes sense. And I would have literal tears of pain as I gritted my teeth and stood up. And I would have knock-on effects from all of this posture pain. I would have plantar fasciitis, I would have knee issues, hip issues, not just the sciatica. It was horrendous. And what's weird is they gave me an epidural. I think I was 28 with the epidural that I last had prior to my pregnancy and my cesarean. They gave me an epidural, yanked my back into place. And I think something was damaged there, like my sciatic nerve, because I felt nothing from my belly button down from that day on. And it's only now in my 40s that I've started to get feeling in my abdomen back. So if I had stomach cramps or any pain in my belly, I'd never feel it. When I was pregnant with my twins, I went into labour, my waters broke, and I was smiling happily, and the nurse just thought I was mental because she was like, oh, you've got contractions, you should be in. I'm like, no, I don't feel a thing, don't feel a thing. So I was pregnant with my twins and felt nothing during my contractions. That's how numb I was below. So although something was damaged with that epidural, it actually kind of helped me in a way because the pain had gone. A lot of the pain had gone, the sciatic pain at least. But the crippling pain in my lower back from when I ovulated to when I was finishing my period was so horrendous that I would cry and take 2 hours every morning to get up. I couldn't dance for about 15 years. I could barely even walk. I can't begin to tell you, it was like loads of little knives sticking in your lower back. It was just horrendous. I was given no help and support on the endometriosis apart from the Zoladex, breast cancer treatment, things like that that just made me worse. Nobody diagnosed the PCOS until after breastfeeding. And then they said that during my pregnancy, I must have been on the borderline of PCOS. And my nieces, have, at least one of them has since been diagnosed with PCOS. They just weren't diagnosing women back then. My mum and aunts and sisters never got diagnosed. They were just given hysterectomies because of their unpleasant cycles. But they were never diagnosed properly with like endometriosis or PCOS. And a hysterectomy never solved their problem because then they were just given HRT and the underlying hormone imbalance and issues were never ever dealt with. So I think what shocked me the most is how there was no help available. There was nobody who could advise, who could help, who could guide me. And the doctors were just like, there's nothing we could do. All we can do is hold off it getting worse as you get older. And it was just such negative information. And I couldn't do very much. I'm a very active person. I'm a deep sea diver. I'm a skier. I used to go hiking with big backpacks on. I'm a very active person. So I found this really, really, really hard to swallow. And the discomfort was just horrendous. And it was also hard working in IT with cycles like this influencing my day-to-day life and making everything so much harder for me. So it was really hard to just carry on and pretend I was being normal. And the worst thing is that when I was going through the divorce, my twins were 2 and I was really depressed, as you would be, because your husband's just left and had an affair and you're on your own with twins that are 13 months old. So you're going to be depressed, you're going to be tired, you're working around the clock, all alone with no support and help. I have no family. And it was just, and I had no local friends because within a week of my husband leaving me, all my friends dumped me within a week. I became a threat that their husbands might jump onto, like I wanted a man, you know. But it's normal. I've met a lot of divorced, single and widowed women who said the same, that their friends just see them as a threat and they drop you like a ton of bricks. So that I actually found really hard. And I was depressed because it was a depressing experience to go through, which is normal, you know. And it's the same with anxiety. Sometimes it's just normal to be anxious. You know, in lockdown with the pandemic and, you know, cost of everything, if you're not anxious, I think there's probably something wrong with you. It's not a mental health issue. It's a natural, normal response to the environment around you. So if you're a mother and you're raising twins and you have severe health issues that other people can't understand because it's not visible to them, and your husband has an affair and leaves you, you're going to be depressed. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you mentally. It's a natural response to a really difficult situation. And it really upset me that the GP just wanted to throw antidepressants at me. And I did try them for a while, and I was just like, these are making me so sluggish. I can't get up in the morning and function, and I have 2 children to look after. So within a week, I gave up on them. I was like, I can't function like this. And I can honestly say, and for those of you who have chronic pain that just goes on and on and on year after year, it breaks you. It breaks you down. It changes you into a different person. And I know you understand this. I wasn't me. Most of the time, I just wasn't me. I was so miserable, grumpy, in pain. I can't even begin to explain it. It's hard to find the words to explain it, but the best way I can summarize it is I felt trapped in a body that wasn't mine and that I didn't want, and I wanted out. And I didn't want to live this life, but I had 2 beautiful children that I was responsible for, plus all my cats and dogs. And I'm a very loyal, responsible person, so that comes above any of my own personal needs. So I had to persevere, I had to do this, and I had to look after them. And I took every day as it came, and I went through each day. One thing I never did, as hard as some days were, I never once gave up trying to find a cure. I never once gave up. I did give up with the NHS. And the NHS in the UK is absolutely horrendous. I can't get appointments. They have no respect for me. They don't care about me whatsoever. And I'll talk about that when I go into the diabetes side of it. But at the moment, I'm just focusing on the endometriosis and the PCOS because it makes women's lives horrendous. And we need to be talking about these more. And menopause just hit me like a cricket bat in the face. And it just amplified things that I had cured and things that had gone. And we have to talk about this more because they are invisible to the naked eye, but they make people's lives horrendous. So endometriosis, PCOS, menopause, boom, big cricket bat in my face, absolutely horrendous. And I didn't find the NHS helped. Even with menopause, my so-called expert who specialised in menopause GP wouldn't do any tests. Wouldn't test anything for menopause to see where I am, how far I am. No blood tests, no hormone tests, no nothing, because we don't need to do that on the NHS. So they gave me no guidance or help with the menopause. They didn't help me to understand how it may impact or heighten anything like endometriosis or PCOS or diabetes. Nothing. They said nothing. They gave me no guidance. I didn't even know that a lot of GPs give people metformin for PCOS. I didn't even know that. I wasn't offered it. I wasn't given any consultation, help or advice or anything on PCOS. I was just left to deal with it all. Now, it's a little bit unfortunate with the pandemic and the NHS crisis as it stands, because that's just made them care even less for the individuals because they just can't cope. This is not criticising the good doctors and nurses out there. I have friends who are doctors and nurses and they're awesome. But a lot of them are just not great. They're not well trained, or they're programmed in a way where they only treat the symptoms and not really help you in a holistic way. So I gave up on the NHS and my GPs really early for these. When I actually went to the gynaecologist in the Royal Berks in Reading, the gynaecologist said to me, your combination of issues are actually quite complicated. There's only one person up in Manchester who can help you, and he is a private doctor, so you'd have to save a few £1,000s to go and get some help. And I was just like, if it was a female doctor, I would probably consider it. But I find it really hard to talk about these things with a male. I don't want to talk about these things with a male doctor. And I don't think they can totally understand what women go through because they don't have a woman's body. And I don't mean that in a sexist way. I work in IT. I think men and women working together are equal and that great and everything. But I don't want to talk about private problems like that with a man, you know? So I wasn't happy with the lack of help and support I got. And I went down a holistic and spiritual route. So when I refused at the age of 28 to have a metal plate in my back, I was hit with quite a lot of negative energy from the doctors. They were not happy that I said no. And I was 28. So go on 15, 20 years from then. And there are so many people who regret having that metal plate put in their back. I've met loads of them. It hasn't helped. It's given them more pain and agony and restriction ever since. And it was like when my mum had a hysterectomy. They would dish out hysterectomies left, right and centre at that point in time. And when I was 28, they would dish out metal plates in your spine left, right and centre because it was their quick, easy way to do it. And I'm so, so glad, so grateful for the guidance that I got to push that away, to say, no, it doesn't feel right. What I did at the time was an osteopath and massage and walking. I did not sit for more than 2 or 3 hours at a time. Even at bedtime, I didn't go to sleep. I went walking to keep my back moving whilst it was stretched out upside down on a machine, and that my muscles were elongated and things like that. So that all worked, but I was still in excessive pain, even though the slip discs and the prolapse discs and the sciatica stopped. Then I found different forms of healing. Now, I became a Reiki master and I loved Reiki healing. I found it a massive spiritual awakening for me. And I started to see things that you couldn't normally see in your life. And it was very bizarre, but brilliant. But I found that Reiki, and I've come to believe that it is an old-fashioned healing modality that doesn't work with the new energies on this planet, unless you have a really an advanced healer who has just been able to push it through. But I do think it's like an old healing method, and we have energetically changed. And I just even felt at the time that it's a nice painkiller and it's nice to have, but it needs constant topping up and it never actually cures anything. So then I get on to how I cured this. I went to learn about a higher level of healing that's called pranic healing, and it's life-changing for me. So my IBS was gone in one treatment. I worked for 3 months on my body with the endometriosis and it all went. So I went from taking 2 hours to stand upright in the morning and crying in absolute agony that no painkiller could touch, to having nothing. My plantar fasciitis went, my lower back issues went, and it was really subtle. It was not massive. It was just like in the first month, the pain reduced. In the second month, the pain was more of an ache. And the first month and second month, my heavy periods went really, really low. Then the third month, I was surprised when I started my period. I was like, oh, I normally have a 10-day window of agony to alert me as to when it's going to come. And I had none of that. And it was like, oh my goodness. And after that 3 month, I never looked back. I never had pain again. I'm 50 now. I have no pain. I have no sciatica. I have no sciatica endometriosis. And I've not had any medical treatment to get rid of it. It wasn't lasered. It wasn't. So how can it just vanish off the lower back? How can it just all disappear after like 30 years? of extreme pain. Or 20 something years, what is it, 19, 29, 39, 20 something years. How can it disappear like that? It just doesn't seem possible, does it? So my IT brain and my logic, like, no, that's not right. But it worked. And I honestly, don't ever give up trying to find something that works. I will always say that we're all different. We all find things that work for us. So for example, I do reflexology and I love reflexology. But I can go to a reflexologist, have reflexology, and go, didn't like that, didn't do anything for me. So if that had been my first experience, it would have been negative. But it was just something about the energy with that person that didn't resonate with me. So it doesn't work. Fortunately, I'd had years of really good reflexology before I came across somebody who didn't have a good energy for me. We're all different. We resonate with the people that we can resonate with. And I found reflexology very nice, but again, like Reiki healing, didn't cure anything. So the modality I use now, I do see that it can totally change your life. I'm not a doctor, so I'm apparently legally, so disclaimer here, I'm not allowed to say I can cure anything. However, I got rid of it completely in myself. My dog was diagnosed with a heart murmur and cancer, and she had several tumours on her spleen and her liver. So it was a slow-paced cancer. I was like, great, that gives me time to work on her. And the vet said, you've got 4 to 6 months. 4, if her quality of life is not great, 6 months at best. 8 months later, I had her rescanned. No heart murmur. And heart murmurs don't normally go. They kind of like stay the same. So you try to reduce them and not make them worse. No heart murmur. And just one tiny little bit of a tumour left on her liver. All the tumours on the spleen had gone, all the tumours on the liver had gone. Just this one tiny little bit, and I was like, I'll get rid of that soon. And she lived for over 2 years more, or about 2 years more. She was 12 at the time of being diagnosed anyway, and that's quite, 14 is quite good for a Labrador. And she had health issues since she was 5 or 6 years of age, and I learned from my mistakes with her and got better. But what was fascinating is it all went. And I honestly cannot emphasize enough, do not give up on finding something that works for you. There is always a way to remove everything you're suffering from, or at least make it a heck of a lot better. And it's never too late. And my attitude is I took far too long learning these things. It dragged out my healing for over 20 years. And then I was healed for a few years, then got hit with menopause and went backwards. But I just want to emphasize, we have nothing if we don't have our health. And if I could go back in time and find someone like me who could give me the information that I've gained, it would have saved me years of agony, just years of struggling and agony. So what I've done in my courses is consolidated all my information. I work as a business analyst and I'll start that again. I work as a business analyst and a project manager. So I will go in, data analyse an IT system for global organisations and come up with ideas and recommendations as to how we can consolidate them onto one platform that makes life easier. All I did with my health issues is use different types of data. So I read tons of information. I've listened to loads of podcasts. I've seen loads of specialists. I've consolidated all the data that's holistic, that's scientific, that's a little bit of both, that doesn't make even sense at all and should just be like a myth or a legend or an old housewives tale, but somehow it works. And I've put it all together in a course for over 20 to 30 years of suffering that I've gone through as to how you can make your life easier. And I want to just help people to avoid going through 20 to 30 years of what I had to go through. It's no life. And I've wasted so much of my life because of this lack of knowledge. So I wanted to put it together. And more than anything, I wanted to motivate you that don't give up. I think my last MRI scan, I was 34 or 35. And my back was better then after my twin pregnancy and I had a cesarean, so you've got weakened muscles on the front and an epidural, because epidurals often make you worse. What they did to me when I was 28, the orthopaedic surgeons and 12 months of private physiotherapy care made me worse. None of it helped. And if I could go back in time, I would undo it. But all they kept saying is, it's long-term management, it's year after year management, and you just have to grin and bear it for the rest of your life. And it's not true. I'm completely free of all that pain. And I didn't have anything of the medical industry to prevent it. So my back at my MRI scan when I was 34 or 35 was better than my MRI at age 28. My back now at age 50 is better than in my 30s. Now I dance like a lunatic, and I love it, because I always did love to dance. And it's quite an eye-opener to me that I was in so much pain at age 19, so much agony, and then I came back to having a better back in my 30s than in my 20s, and an even better body in my 50s than back then. Ironic, isn't it? But you can undo everything. Do not give up hope. Do not. You don't have to believe it as you go, but you just keep going. Don't quit. Do not quit. And one of the saddest things somebody said to me is, I can never go abroad because I'm too dependent on the NHS and I have too many appointments every week. How awful. Where is the life to live if you're constantly doing this? So I do know that we can completely undo everything, because I have. And if I'm nothing special, if I can do it, anyone can do it. And I do know that we don't have to deteriorate and get worse as we get older. It's not natural, actually. We're supposed to be really healthy, and it's only in Western countries that we're so unwell. So I hope this inspires and motivates you. I'm now going to focus on doing another story on my diabetes, and how to, overcome and reverse that, or avoid it completely, better still, right? That's what I like about the holistic approach, is to always avoid it. So my course is going to be focused on diabetes and PCOS. And even if you have endometriosis and anemia and IBS, they're all kind of related. They're all hormone imbalances and issues in similar areas. And I'm just going to focus the course on the PCOS and the diabetes. And I just hope this inspires you. Don't ever give up. Don't ever think that you are only ever going to degrade and go worse, because I and others have got better as we've got older. And I am really proud and blessed to say that at age 50, I'm in better health and condition now than when I was in my late 20s. Fantastic. And there's nothing special about me. There's nothing stopping anyone from being able to say the same thing. So I will see you in the next video.